Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video, and I've got another round of class tuning updates and some important factors to take into account with patch 9.1.5. And I think it's really kind of learning some lessons type of factors that are coming in here. It seems like they're making a lot of changes that in the past they had seemed very reluctant to, but now they're more willing to be flexible and listen to community feedback. There's one change in particular that happened so suddenly that I'm very surprised. Usually we've not seen reactions like that. If a change comes through, then it usually comes through with their intentions, but they ended up listening directly to the community's feedback almost immediately on it. So a lot of these initial changes that I'm looking at, I've already covered in other videos. So if you'd like to check them out, I will have it linked at the end of the video. There are a couple of them that we need to talk about. And the first one that jumps off the page was this binding shot change. Binding shot root for hunters was going to be changed to break on damage. And then there was an overwhelming amount of feedback from hunter players, I would imagine, saying, no, you can't do this to us. You cannot make binding shot break on damage. This has become a very important part of our toolkit. And I think it was mostly PvE hunters that were the most upset by this. And what was funny is a lot of them were saying on social media that they thought this was a PvP change. And I mean, I find binding shot slightly annoying in PvP, but it also makes a bit of sense because Hunter doesn't have a lot of other ways to peel off melee DPS. So it works for pinning down a target really well. And it wasn't really that kind of ridiculous to me. When I think of other roots in the past that haven't broken on damage in PvP, like Destro Lock, being able to root you and then Chaos Bolt you for your entire health bar in 1 second was really frustrating. But the binding shot on the way Hunter works, I didn't really notice it too much. So it felt like maybe this was only being changed for PvE and Mythic Plus, and maybe trying to not allow players to stack up a ton of mobs and root them and blast them down. I don't really know. Or maybe it was a PvP specific change. But regardless, this change ended up getting reverted. And this is what I was talking by. Some factors seem to be changing because this was like a day later after everybody saying you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. And like, okay, we agree. It's an important part of the toolkit, and we're not going to be iterating on it. So binding shot is still going to not break on damage. And it was kind of that immediate snap reaction interaction with the community that I really loved, responding to that feedback. And I think it made sense to go back on it when they did. So it was a really good change. I covered this in the other video. Frost Mage getting some buffs here. It's a little bit easier to understand though on this post with 12% Icicles, 8% Frostbolt, and 10% Flurry. Some of the more specific ones, Fury Warrior getting an auto attack buff by 43%. I think they said that this ends up being a net 4% damage increase, or something along those lines. We talked about the Druid and how much I loved these changes in the other video that you can check out, reducing its healing by 50% on Swiftmen. And then this change I think I didn't get to cover because it swung in at the last second, which is now Decimating Bolt's damage bonus to Demon Bolt, Shadow Bolt, and Incinerate can no longer be dispelled. And this is most important for Demonology Warlock. Warlocks in general are getting a lot of attention in this patch. Might be a good idea to come check it out. I'm going to be making some videos, some tier lists about like what's looking like the most fun, and maybe some changes that might be flying under the radar. You might be just kind of so jumbled up in all of the chaos at the moment with what's going on with World of Warcraft that you might not even know what's changing, or maybe it doesn't even feel like something is changing, but there's quite a bit that is changing. So if you'd like to check out those videos, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. This is the biggest bonus in PvP, obviously, and it's going to be for Demonology, who actually runs the Necrolord Covenant. So now you'll be able to line up your Demon Bolts without having to worry about them getting purged off before you actually get to connect your damage. Now moving forward to some changes that are more recent, as in like today or yesterday. BM is getting a slight PvP modifier nerf, so I think it ends up being 5% less damage during Bestial Wrath. Is how the change works here. There's a ton of text to cover, but to my understanding, it comes out to roughly around that range, 5% nerf during Bestial Wrath. And again, that's in PvP only. Is it really going to level Beast Mastery Hunter? Probably not. You're also getting some buffs to some of your covenants. So the Venthyr one's getting buffed, as well as the Necrolord one is getting buffed. Might be interesting to check out some other covenants now that you'll be able to switch in 9.1.5, with the Death Chakrams providing you, I think, 10% increased physical damage or something like that. And the survivability bonuses of being Necrolord, it might be a good pickup as a hunter, and would definitely reverse a bit of this. But I think a 5% nerf during Beast of Wrath makes sense for at least where BM Hunter is at the moment. And now these I definitely know are the most recent, and I'm sure that Marksmanship hunters are happy to see this. You're going to be seeing buffs to your aimed shot damage, buffs to your rapid fire damage, and buffs to your arcane shot damage in PvP only. at the moment. And it looks like Revive Pet is going down from a 4-second cast to a 3-second cast. And remember, at the start of the expansion, how many hunters were just completely just livid. Like, you can't do this. You cannot make this pet res so long. If our pet dies, we are completely useless. And this is, again, leading into what I said at the start of the video, making some changes in response to the way that the community is receiving them. So res pets going down. This might then come across to you as a PvP player as they're buffing hunters, right? Like, BM hunter pet res is going to be shorter. It seems like a BM hunter buff, and in a way it is. But at the same time, I think having the pet res be so brutally long to the point where it's almost like the entire match is just trying to res your pet wasn't exactly the what do you want to say, it was pretty toxic, was the best way to say it. Another thing for Windwalker is that Bone Dust Brew is being nerfed in PvP. I think it comes out to about a 30% nerf or something along those lines on its PvP modifier. But Windwalker is having so many changes being done to it that's really tough to call if it's going to come out and be where it currently is. Again, they're targeting the spinning crane kick talent and bringing that down quite a bit. They're toning it down a lot. And now bringing down the Bone Dust Brew, but then they also made it so their Sky Reachers legendary will work with Bone Dust Brew, which might bring its damage back up. So it seems a little bit misleading as far as, is Windwalker going to be in a terrible spot, or is it going to be in an all right spot? It still seems like it's the spec where your damage is only happening during Storm, Earth, and Fires when, and you're spinning crane kick proc. And if you don't have any of those things, you're probably not killing the target. And it's still probably likely the case. Maybe instead of dying in 1 millisecond, you're going to die in 2 milliseconds. It might be the only thing that I could really catch on to with this. But like I said, these types of changes where they're reacting to the community's feedback and iterating on it, I'm hoping that means it's going to be promising moving forward for further patches and further expansions, so that maybe when we get into the 10.0 beta or something, or alpha, we're looking at classes. I'm really hoping that they go and look at some other specs and give them some tune-ups like they did for Warrior and Shadow Priest. I think that they did a really good job with the specializations, that they gave some tune-ups in Shadowlands. I think there's a couple of other specs. The ones that I would personally like to see most get an update is Demonology Warlock, Marksmanship Hunter, Arcane Mage. Maybe, is that about it? Those are like the 3 that were standing out to me. Demonology, maybe Affliction. It seems like with Warlock, at least, they were trying to homogenize the builder spender system. But I'm still not sure if every spec in the game needs to be based off the exact same model. Because previous iterations of Affliction, I really enjoyed things like the Soul Burn mechanic to enhance another spell. Not so much the Soul Burn Soul Swap with a full row of instant dots, but things like Soul Burn Haunt. Just Haunt in general coming back maybe as a baseline ability, and removing Malefic Rapture, and just focusing on maintaining their dots, maintaining their buff uptime, managing their buffs, so when they get their procs, they're lining their cooldowns up. That's, to me, when I had the most fun with Warlock, at least. Again, I don't want to speak for other people if you're not feeling that way, but if you're liking Malefic Rapture, to me it made more sense with how it was. Maybe it's just because I grew attached to it, but at least in PvP, the Malefic Rapture builder spender just kind of feels off base, and then there's a lot of spells that aren't even used or shared between them. But those would be kind of the specs that I'd like to see get quite a bit of attention. Maybe Mistweaver Monk getting a little bit more, whether it's damage reduction or more damage output or some more unique utility to it so that it stands out separate from Paladin, because to me Paladin and Mistweaver kind of both got that vibe of like doing damage and big chunky heals, but having some more unique identity between the two, whether that's PvE or PvP. So Demonology, Marksman, Mistweaver, Affliction. Really love to see those get looked at in 10.0, coming from my own personal perspective. But if they keep up with this and keep making changes like this and keep responding to the community like this and maintain it throughout 9.1.5, 9.2, whatever, wherever we're moving from there. Again, we're still working through some kind of unprecedented times, right? So I think there is a little bit of leeway in that sense. I can't imagine that producing all of this stuff, given all of the chaos currently in the world and at the company, is too easy at the moment. But I do like what they're doing right now, and I'm just really hoping that it continues and there's going to be more of it. Other than that, what do you think? What would you like to see for changes for 9.1.5? Is it something that's grabbing your attention now? Is it looking to be like a better patch overall? I'm personally excited to try out some different Covenant builds. And like I said, I'm going to be pumping out a video that goes over those different Covenants and different builds and different ideas that I've got. So if you're curious about checking something out that you might not have thought of or might not have noticed, then make sure you're subscribed. And I'll have that link to the videos at the end of this video, which is basically right now, for you to check out in case you've missed a patch note or you've missed a cycle, because I've got a lot of them. There's actually a lot of them to sift through. So if you'd rather listen to it, then this is what I'm trying to do: create a good resource for you to just check out the changes as rapidly as possible and dump in my opinion, however valuable it happens to be to you. Other than that, thank you very much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.